Okay, hi Danny. Welcome to lesson number 36. And this lesson goes over fractions of a dollar. And I just had you in my room and I just asked you the first couple questions that goes with this lesson. And you knew it. You knew it right away. And then I was like, "Oh, I just did a whole lesson explaining this." And then you were like, sorry for being smart. And then I was like, well, that's not something you need to apologize for. So since you're such a smarty pants, you're just going to have a nice, easy lesson for this one, okay? So have fun with it. Anyway, you might still learn something new. So I would still listen to the whole thing because sometimes you still pick up little tidbits that are new or I say it in a way that you haven't thought about before. So I would still watch the whole thing and listen and tell me if you do learn something new because that'll be super interesting for me to know, okay? So good luck with your homework with this lesson then, since you know most of it. And if you do know most of it, then enjoy a nice, easy lesson, okay? Love ya. Bye. Okay, welcome back, Danny. Today we are doing lesson number 36, which goes over fractions of a dollar. So this is going to be super fun because we're going to be talking about money and fractions. So combining two pretty awesome things. But we're going to start out first with mental math, and this is where you try to do the problems in your head. So let's see what you can do with it. I gave you a couple of beautiful nature pictures to look at while you're doing it, okay? So here we go. A, on mental math, we're doing 840 minus 200. Write down your answer. Okay, this one's similar but different. Problem B, 840 minus 20. Write your answer. What about C, 845 minus 220? See if you can get that one. If I'm going too fast, make sure that you pause it. All right, this is part of the review, and we're doing 75 plus 7 plus 200. What about E? Whew, this one looks tricky to me. It's 36 plus 39 plus 10. I bet on this one what they want you to do is add 40 here in your head and then subtract 1. That might make it a little easier. All right, let's move on to F. Oh, F is at the bottom here. We're going to do 300 plus 620 plus 50. Write down your answer there. Okay, we're going to move on to problem solving. And this one is super fun. I think you're going to like it because it has to do with squaring and it has to do with square roots. So as you can see here, we have a checkerboard. And I wrote the most important things that they tell us about this checkerboard. And the important things are that this one in the picture has 64 small squares. Okay, so they tell us that. And then they also say there are 8 squares along each side. That makes sense to me because if you do 8 squares along this side and 8 squares along this side, this is actually how you square a number, right? And this is the same as doing 8 squared. So 8 squared, we know that is 64. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and erase this because they sort of set up the problem that way, but then they give us a different problem. They say if there is a square board that instead of having 64 checkerboards, let's say it only has 36 total squares on the checkerboard. So then they want to know how many would be going across the top and how many would be going across the bottom. It's going to be the same number. It's going to be something squared equals 36. In other words, it might be, if you can look down here, it might be the square root of 36. But that's all the hints I'm going to give you. That's it. No more hints. Okay, I think you can figure that out. You're probably like, Mom, I could have figured it out without you. Just like Bart here. He's getting pretty bored. All right, so bored Bart, we are going to move on to the new concept. So this is going to be really fun. What they tell us is that since lesson 22, we've been using coins as fractions of a dollar, but now we're going to start using, instead of coins, actual fractions. Okay, so let me tell you how we're going to do that. The first thing that they have us look at is pennies. So remember that there are 100 pennies in $1. So 100 pennies equals $1. So what does that mean? That means that each penny, if you look at one penny, each penny is 1/100th of a dollar. So when we're talking about pennies, the fraction that is important is this 1/100th, because there are 100 pennies in the dollar, so 100 goes in the denominator, and because we're only talking about 1 penny, then 1 penny goes in the numerator. Let's do that again, but with nickels. All right, we know that with nickels, there are, okay, you got to pay close attention to this part because it's going to get tricky. 20 nickels in a dollar. 20 nickels is equal to $1 because a nickel is worth 5 cents, right? 5 cents. So if you count 5, 10, 15, 20, how many nickels does it take to get to a dollar? It takes 20 nickels. So there are 20 nickels in $1. So how much is each nickel worth? What fraction of a dollar? Well, since there are 20 nickels that go into a dollar, 20 goes here in the denominator. And 1, since we're talking about 1 nickel, that goes in the numerator. So a nickel is actually 1/20th of a dollar. You could also say that 5 cents is equal to 1/20th of a dollar. So you can describe part of a dollar by using a fraction, or the other way to describe it is to use a dollar sign and a decimal point. And so we'll go over that too. But since I already told you that it's 5 cents for a nickel, the way we would do that with a dollar and a decimal sign is just like we did it in the last lesson. It would look like this right here. Okay? All right. Let's go on. So it says, so you can describe a dollar by using a fraction or by using a dollar sign and a decimal. See, you're going to like this lesson because it explains more about money, and we have to know how to deal with money very carefully because you don't want to gyp yourself of any money, right? No one wants to do that. So we got to know this stuff. Let's do example 1. Example 1, and this is still on your first page, on page 161, kind of halfway down. It says, 3 pennies are what fraction of a dollar? Okay, so let's figure that out. We said before that 1 penny is 1/100th of a dollar. And since we're talking about pennies, that goes in the denominator. Now, what goes in the numerator is actually the number of pennies that we're talking about. And they said here that they want to know 3 pennies are what fraction of a dollar. So in the numerator, instead of 1, I'm going to cross that out. I'm going to actually change it to 3 pennies because there are 3 pennies that they want to know is what fraction of a dollar. And since a penny is worth 1/100th of a dollar, 3 pennies are going to be worth 3/100ths of a dollar. That's how you would say it in words. It would be 3/100ths with a THS, 3/100ths of a dollar. Okay, now the next part of the question says, write the value of 3 pennies using a dollar sign and a decimal point. So if you went to a store and you saw something and it cost 3 cents, how would you write it if you had to write it like this? Space, space, space. So there's our decimal point, and there's the spaces. If something costs 3 pennies, how would we write it? So since it's 3/100ths of a dollar, the hundredths place is actually here. The hundredths place, because it's 2 past the decimal. I don't know if we've learned that yet, but it's 3 out of 100. So it can also be written as 0, because that's where the dollars go. This is where the dimes go, and this is where the pennies go. So dimes go here. That's called tenths. Pennies go here. That's called hundreds. And dollars go here. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. All right, I hope it makes sense because I'm going to move on to the next example. And this is another example about coins, which is why I put Aladdin there. He's given away all those gold coins, it looks like. So example number 2 says, which coin equals 1/4 of a dollar? So there's some coin that 4 of them make a dollar. All right, so let's see if we can figure that out. I think you probably know that 4 quarters make a dollar. because 4 quarters are 25, 1 quarter is 25 cents. And then if you count by 25s, it would be 25, 50, 75, 100. And when you get to 100 cents, then you know you have $1. So 4 quarters equal $1. So a quarter, 1 quarter, is equal to 1/4 of $1. Of $1. 1 quarter is equal to 1/4 of $1. And in fact, the term quarter means a fourth. So if you like quarter something, like a verb, if you quarter like a pie, that means you cut it into 4 big pieces. Ooh, that sounds good right now, doesn't it? Okay, so 4 quarters is $1, 1 quarter is 1/4 of $1, and a quarter is 25 cents. Lots of things to learn there. Now, for part B, it wants us to figure this one out. Write 1/4 of $1 using a dollar sign and a decimal point. So they're saying if you go to the store and you've got this tag right here with a decimal point there, and it's actually a dollar sign out here, how would you write something that costs $1/4 of $1? Or how would you write something that costs 25 cents? So if it only costs $1/4 of $1, then the number here in the dollars place is going to be 0. What about the next number? A quarter could also be 2 dimes and 1 nickel, because 2 dimes is 10 cents each, so that's 20 cents. 1 nickel is 5 cents. Could also be 5 pennies. So the dimes go in this spot. And if the dimes go here, I'm going to put a 2 here. And if the nickels or pennies go here, if there's 5 pennies, I'm going to put a 5 here. So this is how you would write it. Tell me if that is really confusing, and I'll explain it more when I get home, okay? Let's do example 3. Example 3 on the next page says 3 dimes are what fraction of $1? Okay, so let's see if we can figure that one out. 1 dime is how many cents? Well, I think you know that it's, whoops, I don't want to do a dollar sign. I'm just going to put 10 cents. Okay, 1 dime is 10 cents. So 3 dimes must be 30 cents. So 3 dimes equals 30 cents. Okay, and there's 100 cents in $1, so it's going to be like, well, here's another way to say it. How many dimes go in $1? If we're writing a fraction, for the denominator right here, I want to write how many dimes go in $1. And if you think about it, and 1 dime is 10 cents, how many times, if you count by tens, how many times does that go in $1? And I think you can see that the answer is going to be 10 down there, because 10 dimes make $1. And on the top goes, how many dimes are we talking about? And in the problem, it says we're talking about 3 dimes. So on the top, I'm going to write 3. So this is the fraction that 3 dimes are what fraction of $1? This is the fraction. 3 dimes are actually 3/10 of $1. And then it says for part B, write the value, whoops, I don't want to do that. Write the value of 3 dimes using a dollar sign and decimal point. So let's say you're a manager at the store and you only got tags that looks like this. And something costs 3 dimes. How would you write that on that type of tag? And you would have to write it like there's no dollars because you're only talking about 3 dimes here. So you've got a 0 there in the dollars place. This is actually the dimes place, the tenths. So I'm going to put a 3 right there because we're talking about 3 dimes. this is actually the pennies place. And since there's no pennies, we're just talking about dimes, I'm going to put a 0 there. So that's how I would write it, with $sign and a decimal point. Okay, that's pretty tricky, Danny. This is getting very challenging. I hope you're not too frustrated, just like Rabbit here. He looks like, oh, come on, do I have to keep doing this? All right, example 4 changes things up, so it's a little different because they want us to compare, okay? And the two things that we're comparing, and see this circle, they want us to put either a greater than sign, a less than sign, or an equal sign. It's going to be one of those. So let's see what goes there. On the left-hand side, we have 1/20th of a dollar. So how much is that if you have 1/20th of a dollar? So if you take 100 cents and you divide it by 20, what do you get? And if you count by 20s, you can go 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. And you can figure out that there are actually 5 groups of 20 in 100. So when we're talking about 1/20th of a dollar, we are only talking about 5 cents. That's not very much. So that is what goes on this left-hand side, 5 cents. What about 1/2 of a dollar? Well, 1/2 of a dollar is kind of like saying 100 cents divided by 2, because I'm dividing it by that denominator right there to figure out how much value is 1/2 of a dollar. And if you take 100 and you divide it in half, I think that you'll realize that there are 2 groups of 50. So this is going to equal, let me make a little more room here. I think you're going to see that it equals 50 cents. So on the on the right-hand side, we have 50 cents. And on the right-hand side, we had 5 cents. So which one would you rather have? 5 cents or 50 cents? I think you would rather have 50 cents. So we're going to put a less than sign because 5 cents is less than 50 cents. So if this is like the alligator, oh, I did that wrong. His teeth go here, right? He eats the bigger side. That doesn't look like an alligator. It looks like a snake, but that's okay. It's a less than sign, so 50 cents is bigger. Alrighty, guess what? The other point that they are making is what that means, one last thing. What that means is that 1/20th is less than 1/2. 1/20th of a dollar is less than 1/2 of a dollar. That's a very difficult concept that you're learning there, Danny. But you're a smarty pants, and I think you can learn that. So that's going to be it for today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see what you do with your homework, okay? Love ya. Bye.